They say you can't put a price on dignity. I learned that day at the airport that mine had been on clearance for years, and I was the only one who hadn't noticed. I stood in the corner of the departure terminal, my beaten suitcase at my feet, watching Eleanor and her entourage laugh and pose for pictures like they were on some kind of red carpet. My stepmother had always known how to command a room, and today was no different. Her daughters, Tiffany and Madison, flanked her like matching accessories, their designer luggage gleaming under the fluorescent lights. My stepbrothers, Richard and Thomas, stood nearby checking their phones, occasionally glancing my way with that familiar look of disdain I'd grown accustomed to over the years. I was wearing my best outfit, which wasn't saying much. A simple pair of black pants I'd found at a thrift store, and a white blouse I'd ironed 3 times that morning, trying to make myself look presentable. Trying to make myself look like I belonged with them, even though we all knew I didn't. Not in their eyes, anyway. My name is Letitia Anderson, and for the past 7 years since my father died, I've been the family ghost, present but invisible, useful but worthless. The daughter who never quite measured up, never quite fit in, never quite deserved the Anderson name. The trip to the Bahamas had been planned for months. Eleanor had made a big show of including me, telling everyone at the country club how generous she was to bring her poor stepdaughter along. I should have known better. I should have seen the trap. But some part of me, some desperate, pathetic part, still hoped that maybe this time would be different. Maybe this time, she'd treat me like family. I was an idiot. The problem started at check-in. Eleanor had booked tickets for everyone except me. When I approached the counter with my confirmation number, the agent's face fell. There was no ticket under my name. No reservation. Nothing. I called Eleanor over, my voice shaking. She looked at me with such theatrical surprise that I almost believed she'd made an honest mistake. Almost. "Oh my goodness, Letitia," she said, loud enough for the growing crowd around us to hear. "Didn't you book your own ticket? I specifically told you to handle your own arrangements. You're a grown woman, aren't you?" My stomach dropped. She had never said that. Not once. Every conversation we'd had about this trip, she'd assured me everything was taken care of. But as I stood there, fumbling with my phone trying to find proof of what she'd promised, I realized the truth. There was no proof. She'd been careful. Every instruction had been verbal, every assurance given in private, where there were no witnesses. I started, my voice cracking. "You said you'd handle the bookings for the family." Eleanor's expression shifted from surprise to something colder. "The family, yes. But Letitia, dear, you're 25 years old. You should be contributing, not expecting handouts. Do you have any idea how much we've already spent including you in family events over the years?" The words hit me like a slap. Around us, people were starting to stare. Tiffany pulled out her phone, and I saw her angle it toward me. She was recording this. They were all watching my humiliation like it was entertainment. "I've been working 3 jobs," I said quietly, trying to keep my voice steady. "I've been trying to save money. You know I have. I offered to pay for my ticket and you said no." "Did I?" Eleanor's voice dripped with false concern. "I don't recall that. Do you girls remember that?" Tiffany and Madison shook their heads in unison, their faces arranged in matching expressions of pity and disgust. Richard laughed, not even trying to hide it. "Maybe you imagined it, Letitia," Eleanor continued. "You do tend to hear what you want to hear. Honestly, I'm starting to worry about you. This obsession with being included in everything, expecting us to fund your lifestyle, it's not healthy." I felt something crack inside me. Not break, exactly. More like shift. A fundamental change in how I saw the world, how I saw myself in relation to these people who'd been calling themselves my family. I never asked for handouts. I said, louder now. "I work 70 hours a week. I put myself through night school. Every dollar I've earned myself." "Oh, please," Tiffany finally spoke up, her voice dripping with contempt. "You work retail and wait tables. That's not exactly building an empire. And night school? For what? An associate's degree? How ambitious." The crowd around us had grown. I could see phones out, people recording, taking pictures. This was going viral, I realized with horrifying clarity. My degradation, my humiliation, was going to be entertainment for strangers on the internet. Eleanor grabbed my suitcase, her perfectly manicured nails clicking against the handle. Before I could react, she yanked it away from me with surprising force. The old zipper, which I'd been meaning to replace, gave way immediately. The contents spilled across the terminal floor. My clothes, my toiletries, my underwear, everything scattered for everyone to see. A woman nearby gasped. A child pointed and laughed. Tiffany's phone was definitely recording now, her smile vicious and triumphant. "Honestly, Letitia," Eleanor said, looking down at my belongings with disgust. "You can't even pack properly. Look at this mess. Look at these clothes. Are you really surprised we don't want to be seen with you in the Bahamas?" I dropped to my knees, trying to gather my things. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely grab anything. Tears burned in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I wouldn't give them that satisfaction. That's when Tiffany stepped forward and deliberately placed her designer heel on my favorite shirt, the one nice blouse I owned that didn't come from a thrift store. She ground her foot down, leaving a dirty mark on the white fabric, and when she lifted her foot, she looked at me with mock apology. "Oops," she said. "Sorry, I didn't see it there." The laughter from my stepfamily was the worst part. Not the strangers, not the phones, not even the ruined shirt. It was the sound of people who were supposed to love me, people my father had trusted to take care of me, laughing at my pain. I was gathering the last of my things, my vision blurred with unshed tears, when I heard it, a voice. Deep, authoritative, cutting through the chaos like a knife through silk. "Miss Anderson." I looked up, and standing above me was a man in full military dress uniform. Captain's insignia gleamed on his shoulders. His posture was rigid, perfect, commanding. He wasn't looking at me with pity or amusement. He was looking at me with respect. Captain Marcus Thorne. He introduced himself, his voice carrying across the terminal. "Your private aircraft is ready for departure. The flight crew is awaiting your orders." The terminal fell silent. Even Eleanor stopped mid-sentence, her mouth hanging open in a way that would have been comical if I hadn't been so shocked myself. Marcus extended his hand, not to help me up, but in a gesture of respect, like an equal greeting an equal. I stared at him, completely disoriented. I had no private aircraft. I had no flight crew. This had to be some kind of mistake. But then I saw it, the slight nod of his head, almost imperceptible, the steady look in his eyes that said, "Trust me, play along." Something in me shifted again. That crack from before widened into something bigger. I thought about my father, about how he'd always told me I was destined for great things. I thought about the business I'd been building in secret, the investments I'd made with money scraped together from 3 jobs and countless sleepless nights. I thought about the online company I'd founded, the one that was finally starting to turn a real profit, the one I'd kept hidden because I knew Eleanor would find a way to take it from me if she knew. I'd been hiding. I'd been making myself small, thinking that if I just stayed quiet enough, unobtrusive enough, maybe they'd finally accept me. But in that moment, watching Eleanor's face drain of color, seeing Tiffany's phone slowly lower as she forgot to keep recording, I realized something fundamental. I didn't need their acceptance. I never had. I took Marcus's hand and stood up, brushing off my clothes with as much dignity as I could muster. When I looked at Eleanor, I wasn't looking up at her anymore. I was looking straight at her, eye to eye, equal to equal. "It seems," I said quietly, "that I won't be needing your charity after all, Eleanor." The way I said her name, not mom or mother like she'd always insisted, but Eleanor, her actual name, made her flinch. "Letitia," she started, her voice uncertain now. "What is this? What's going on?" "What's going on," I replied, "is that I'm done. I'm done being small for you. I'm done apologizing for existing. I'm done pretending that your cruelty is somehow my fault." Marcus picked up my suitcase with one hand, gesturing toward the VIP terminal with the other. "This way, Miss Anderson. Your aircraft is waiting." I started to walk, and with each step, I felt lighter. The weight I'd been carrying for 7 years, the weight of trying to be worthy of their love, trying to earn a place in a family that never wanted me, lifted with each footfall. Behind me, I heard Eleanor's heels clicking on the tile as she hurried to catch up. "Letitia, wait! We need to talk about this. You can't just walk away. We're family." I kept walking. Marcus stayed beside me, a silent guardian, his presence alone enough to make people step aside and stare. We reached the VIP entrance, where a velvet rope marked the boundary between the regular terminal and the exclusive lounge. Marcus unhooked the rope and held it aside for me. As I stepped forward, Eleanor's hand shot out and grabbed my arm. I said, "Wait." Her voice was shrill now, desperate. "You don't get to just walk away from us. After everything we've done for you, after we took you in when your father died, you owe us." I turned to face her fully for the first time since Marcus had arrived. "Owe you? What exactly do I owe you, Eleanor? Do I owe you for the room in the attic you let me sleep in? The one that's really just storage space with a cot? Do I owe you for the hand-me-downs you gave me while buying your daughter's designer wardrobes? Do I owe you for the college fund my father left me, the one you drained to pay for Tiffany's wedding and Richard's sports car?" Her face went white. We'd never spoken of these things out loud before. These were the family secrets, the quiet cruelties that happened behind closed doors. "You don't know what you're talking about," she hissed. "You were always so ungrateful. We gave you a home." "You gave me a prison," I corrected. "And I gave you 7 years of free labor, 7 years of caring for your house, your children, your life, while you treated me like hired help. But that ends today." Tiffany pushed forward, her face flushed with anger. "This is ridiculous. One guy in a uniform shows up and suddenly you think you're somebody? We all know you're broke, Letitia. You can't even afford a plane ticket. This is some kind of pathetic scam." I smiled at her, and I could see the uncertainty flicker in her eyes. "You know what's funny, Tiffany? You've spent your whole life living off your trust fund, that little allowance your father gives you every month. That's your entire identity. Money you didn't earn, money you did nothing to deserve, and you have the audacity to call me pathetic? How dare you, she sputtered. At least I have money. At least I matter. You matter because of a bank account, I said softly. I matter because I built something with my own 2 hands. There's a difference. Marcus stepped forward, his voice cold and formal. The VIP lounge is for authorized personnel only. I'm going to have to ask you all to step back. Now wait just a minute. Richard tried to push past Marcus, but the captain didn't budge. My stepbrother, who'd played football in college and still acted like he was some kind of athlete, bounced off Marcus like he'd hit a wall. Sir, I won't ask again, Marcus said, his hand moving to his radio. Please step back. Eleanor tried a different approach. Her voice softened, became pleading. Letitia, honey, if you have money, if you've been successful, why didn't you tell us? We're your family. We could have celebrated with you. We could have been proud of you. The manipulation was so transparent it was almost insulting. But once upon a time, it would have worked. Once upon a time, I would have believed her. You want to know why I didn't tell you? I asked. Because every single time I achieved something, you found a way to diminish it. When I got my GED, you told me it wasn't a real diploma. When I got promoted to shift manager, you laughed and said it was still just retail. When I saved up enough money to take 1 college class, you told me I was wasting my time. You didn't want me to succeed, Eleanor. You wanted me to stay small so you could feel big. That's not true, she protested, but her eyes betrayed her. We both knew it was true. Do you know what I did after Dad died? I continued, my voice steady now. While you were spending his life insurance money on vacations and new cars, I was working the overnight shift at a warehouse. While you were sleeping in your king-size bed, I was studying business management on a laptop I bought at a pawn shop. While you were telling everyone I was a burden, I was building an e-commerce company from nothing. And now that company is worth more than this entire family has ever seen. The lie came easily, but it wasn't entirely a lie. My company was growing, and while it wasn't worth millions yet, it was worth enough to matter, enough to change my life. Eleanor's face cycled through emotions: disbelief, anger, fear, and finally, calculation. I could see the gears turning, see her trying to figure out how she could use this information, how she could benefit from my success. Well, she said, forcing a smile. This is wonderful news. We should sit down and discuss this properly. As a family, I'm sure there are opportunities we could explore together. After all, family businesses are very profitable. I laughed. Actually laughed. You think I'm going to give you money? You think after everything you've done, after watching you spill my belongings across this floor 30 minutes ago, that I'm going to hand you a piece of what I've built? I'm your mother, she said, and there was real desperation in her voice now. No, I said firmly. You're my father's widow. You're the woman who married him for his money and tolerated his daughter as an inconvenient package deal. But you are not and have never been my mother. My mother died when I was 3, and she loved me. She actually loved me. You don't even know what that word means. Marcus checked his watch. Miss Anderson, we should depart soon if we want to make our flight window. I nodded, turning back to the rope. Eleanor made one last desperate grab for my arm, but I shook her off easily. Please, she said, and for the first time, there were tears in her eyes. Please don't do this. Don't leave us like this. What will people think? And there it was, the truth beneath everything. She didn't care about losing me. She cared about losing face. About what the country club would say, what her friends would think, how this looked. Let them think whatever they want, I said. I'm done living my life worried about your reputation. I stepped past the velvet rope. Marcus followed immediately, letting it drop back into place. It felt like crossing a border, leaving one country and entering another. Behind the rope was my past. Ahead of me was something different, something mine. But they weren't done yet. As Marcus and I walked through the VIP lounge, I could hear Eleanor and the others arguing with the security guard, demanding to be let through. Eleanor's voice grew louder, more hysterical. You can't do this. We're her family. She needs us. Letitia, you're going to regret this. You hear me? You're going to come crawling back, and when you do, we won't be there. I paused at the entrance to the tunnel that led to the private aircraft gates. Paused and turned around one last time. Eleanor and her children were pressed against the rope barrier like animals at a zoo. The terminal was crowded now. Dozens of people watching the spectacle, phones out, recording everything. Tomorrow this would be on social media. Tomorrow people would be dissecting this moment, choosing sides, passing judgment. Let them. I raised my voice so it would carry across the space between us. You want to know the difference between us, Eleanor? You needed me to be nothing so you could feel like something. But the truth is, I was never nothing. I was just waiting for the moment when I could finally spread my wings and fly, and that moment is right now. I gave her a small, mocking salute, the way a soldier might salute a superior officer, but the gesture was pure irony, pure revenge. Then I turned and walked away, Marcus beside me, leaving them behind in every sense of the word. The walk through the VIP tunnel felt surreal. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. My hands were still shaking. Part of me couldn't believe what I'd just done. Part of me was terrified, but another part, a bigger part, felt free for the first time in 7 years. Marcus led me through a private security checkpoint and out onto the tarmac. And there, gleaming in the afternoon sun, was a private jet. It wasn't huge, but it was real, and it was beautiful. I stopped walking. "Captain Thorne," I said quietly, "I can't pay for this." He turned to me, and for the first time, I saw him smile. "You're not paying for this, Miss Anderson. This is courtesy of Jonathan Chen." Jonathan, my business partner, the programmer I'd met in one of my online classes, the person who'd helped me build my company from the ground up. We'd never met in person, only worked together remotely, but he'd been more of a family to me than Eleanor ever had. "He's been tracking your location," Marcus explained. "When he saw you were going to miss your flight to the Bahamas, he made some calls. I'm actually his cousin. I was in town for a training exercise, and when he told me what was happening, I was happy to help. The plane belongs to a friend who owed Jonathan a favor. He sends his regards and says to stop being stubborn about accepting help." I felt tears prick my eyes again, but this time they were different. These weren't tears of humiliation or pain. These were tears of gratitude, of relief, of the overwhelming realization that I wasn't as alone as I'd thought. "I can't," I started. "This is too much." "Miss Anderson," Marcus said gently, "sometimes the hardest part of surviving abuse is accepting that you deserve good things. You deserve to be treated with respect. You deserve to have people who actually care about you. This isn't charity, this is friendship." We stood there for a moment, and then I nodded. We climbed the stairs to the aircraft, and as I stepped inside, I saw that it wasn't empty. There was a flight attendant, a young woman with a kind smile, and she handed me a glass of champagne. "Mr. Chen wanted me to give you this," she said. "He says congratulations on your freedom." I took the glass with shaking hands and moved to one of the plush leather seats by the window. As the door closed and the engines began to power up, I looked out at the terminal. I could just barely see Eleanor and the others, still arguing with security, still trying to push their way through. They looked so small from here, so powerless. For years they'd been giants in my life, looming over every decision, every thought, every moment. But from up here, they were just people. Flawed, petty, cruel people who only had power over me because I'd given it to them. Marcus sat across from me, professional and calm. "Where would you like to go, Miss Anderson?" "Anywhere but here," I said, and we both smiled. The plane began to taxi, and I watched through the window as the terminal fell away behind us. Watched as Eleanor and her family became smaller and smaller until they were just dots, then nothing at all. As we lifted off, rising into the cloudless sky, I felt something break loose inside me. All the years of being told I wasn't good enough, wasn't smart enough, wasn't worthy, all the times I'd believed them. All the nights I'd cried myself to sleep wondering what was wrong with me, why I couldn't make them love me. None of it mattered anymore. Because the only person whose love I'd really needed was my own, and I was finally ready to give that to myself. "Captain Thorne," I said, "thank you, for everything, for playing along, for helping me, for giving me this moment." "It was my pleasure," he replied. "Anyone who can face down their demons like that deserves a victory lap." I sipped the champagne and looked out at the clouds. Below us, somewhere, Eleanor was probably still ranting, still trying to spin this situation to her advantage, still trying to make herself the victim of my cruelty. Let her. The truth had a way of coming out eventually, and besides, I didn't need her to understand. I didn't need her approval or her acknowledgement. I just needed to be free, and now I was. My phone buzzed with a text from Jonathan. "You did it. I'm so proud of you. Come to San Francisco when you're ready. We have a company to run." I smiled, typing back a quick reply. "On my way." The flight attendant brought me a warm towel and a menu. "We have a few hours until we land. Would you like anything special?" "Just peace and quiet," I said. "That would be perfect." She smiled and retreated to the front of the cabin, leaving me alone with my thoughts. I thought about my father, wondering what he would say if he could see me now. He'd always believed in me, always told me I was capable of great things. Maybe he'd known. Maybe he'd known Eleanor would never treat me right, and that's why he'd set up that trust fund, the one Eleanor had raided. Maybe he'd hoped I'd find a way to break free. I hoped wherever he was proud. The sun was setting by the time we began our descent into San Francisco. The city sprawled below us, golden and glittering with possibility. This was my new beginning, my fresh start, my chance to build a life on my own terms. As the wheels touched down and the plane taxied to the private terminal, I saw Jonathan waiting on the tarmac. He was exactly as I'd imagined him, tall and gangly with messy hair and an enormous smile. Next to him was a woman I didn't recognize, probably his girlfriend Maya, the one he'd told me about in our late-night video calls. Marcus helped me with my bag, the one Eleanor had torn open, the one I'd repacked with as much dignity as I could muster. "This is where I leave you," he said. "But Miss Anderson, if you ever need anything, if your former family causes any trouble, you have my number." "Thank you," I said, meaning it with everything I had. "Thank you for seeing me, for treating me like I mattered." "You do matter," he said simply. "Don't ever forget that." I walked down the stairs into the warm California evening, and Jonathan rushed forward, pulling me into a hug that was 7 years in the making. "You actually did it," he said, his voice muffled against my shoulder. "You actually told them off." "It's all over the internet already," Maya said, holding up her phone. "Someone posted the video. It's going viral. Everyone's on your side." I looked at the screen and saw myself, standing in the terminal, facing down Eleanor. The video caught the moment I'd told her she wasn't my mother, the moment I'd walked away. The comments were overwhelmingly supportive. Strangers defending me, calling Eleanor out, praising my courage. "I don't care what they think," I said, and I meant it. "I didn't do it for them. I did it for me." Jonathan grinned. "Good. Because we have work to do. The company's growing faster than we expected. We have investors interested, partnerships forming. You need to be here, full-time, not trying to balance 3 jobs and night school. This is real, Letitia. This is happening." We drove to his apartment in the city, and over takeout Chinese food, we talked about the future, about expansion plans and hiring strategies and market analysis. We talked about dreams, about possibilities, about all the things that had seemed impossible just this morning. Later that night, alone in the guest room Jonathan had prepared for me, I finally let myself cry. Not tears of pain or humiliation, but tears of release. I cried for the girl I'd been, the one who'd tried so hard to be loved by people who were incapable of it. I cried for the years I'd wasted, the opportunities I'd missed because I'd been too afraid to step out of the shadows. But I also cried tears of joy, because I'd done it. I'd faced my fears, confronted my abusers, and walked away with my head held high. I'd chosen myself, finally, after years of choosing everyone else. My phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. For a moment I considered ignoring it, but something made me answer. "Letitia." Eleanor's voice was quiet, defeated. "We need to talk." "No," I said simply, "we don't. Please." "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything. I never meant to hurt you. I was jealous, and I took it out on you. And I know that's not an excuse, but please, give me a chance to make this right." I thought about it. Part of me, the part that had spent 7 years hoping for exactly this moment, wanted to believe her, wanted to accept the apology and try to rebuild something. But I was done listening to that part of myself. "Eleanor," I said quietly, "I don't forgive you. I don't hate you either. I just don't care anymore. You don't get to be a part of my life, my success, or my future. This is goodbye." "Letitia, please." I hung up and blocked the number. Then I blocked Tiffany, Richard, Thomas, and Madison too. Blocked every connection to that family, severed every tie. It felt good. Over the next few weeks, my life transformed in ways I'd never imagined. Jonathan and I worked 16-hour days, building our company into something real and sustainable. We hired our first employees, secured our first major contract, opened an actual office with our names on the door. I rented my own apartment, a tiny studio in a building with creaky floors and thin walls. But it was mine. Every piece of furniture I bought with money I'd earned. Every decoration I chose reflected who I was, not who someone else wanted me to be. I made friends, real friends, people who liked me for me, not because they wanted something from me. I went on dates. Terrible, awkward first dates that made me laugh and cringe and feel alive. I took weekend trips to wine country, to the beach, to the mountains. I did all the things I'd never had time or money or freedom to do before. And slowly, painfully, wonderfully, I learned to love myself. 3 months after the airport incident, I received a letter from an attorney. Eleanor was suing me for defamation, claiming that my public statements had damaged her reputation and caused her emotional distress. Tiffany had joined the lawsuit, demanding compensation for lost social standing and business opportunities. I showed the letter to Jonathan, expecting to feel afraid or upset. Instead, I felt nothing but mild annoyance. "They're going to lose," Jonathan said confidently. "Everything you said was true and can be documented. Plus, you have dozens of witnesses and character references. This is just harassment." He was right. The lawsuit was dismissed within 6 weeks, and the judge ordered Eleanor to pay my legal fees. I heard through the grapevine that the scandal had cost her status at the country club, that her friends had started avoiding her, and that Tiffany's engagement had been called off after her fiancé's family saw the airport video. I felt no satisfaction in their downfall. I felt nothing at all. They were strangers to me now, people from a life I no longer lived. A year after I'd walked away, our company went public. Not in a huge way, but enough that my shares were suddenly worth real money. Enough that I was financially secure for the first time in my life. Enough that I could give back. I started a foundation for young people aging out of foster care, kids who were facing the same lack of support I'd faced. I funded scholarships for community college students working multiple jobs. I hired people who'd been overlooked and underestimated, giving them the chances no one had given me. And every time I helped someone, every time I saw their face light up with hope and possibility, I felt my father's presence, felt his pride, felt his love. I never heard from Eleanor again after that first phone call. Sometimes I wondered what she told people. How she explained my absence. Whether she ever accepted her role in pushing me away. But those moments of curiosity were fleeting. She was my past, and I was firmly rooted in my present, looking toward my future. 2 years after the airport, I was invited to speak at a business conference about overcoming adversity and building success from nothing. I almost said no. Public speaking terrified me, and talking about my past was painful. But Jonathan convinced me that my story could help people, could inspire them. So I stood on that stage in front of 500 people and told them everything. About Eleanor, about the airport, about the years of abuse and the moment I'd finally chosen myself. About the business I'd built and the life I'd created. The standing ovation lasted 3 minutes. Afterward, people came up to me with tears in their eyes, telling me their own stories of toxic families and painful escapes. Thanking me for showing them it was possible to walk away and still build something beautiful. Asking me how I'd found the courage. And I told them the truth. I didn't feel courageous. I felt terrified. But I did it anyway, because staying was killing me slowly, and leaving was the only way to survive. That night, in my hotel room, I looked at myself in the mirror. Really looked. The woman staring back at me was strong and confident and successful. She was happy. She was free. She was everything that scared little girl in the airport terminal had hoped to become. I thought about that moment, standing in the terminal with my belongings scattered on the floor, tears streaming down my face, convinced I was at my lowest point. I thought about how Eleanor and her children had laughed, how the strangers had recorded, how alone I'd felt, and then I thought about what happened next. The uniform appearing through the crowd, the choice to stand up, the decision to believe I was worth more than their cruelty. That moment in the airport hadn't been my lowest point, it had been my liberation. Now, standing in this hotel room, successful and secure and surrounded by people who genuinely cared about me, I could finally see the full picture. The years of abuse hadn't destroyed me. They'd refined me, forged me into someone stronger than I'd ever imagined I could be. Eleanor had spent years trying to convince me I was worthless, and I'd spent years believing her. But the truth, the beautiful truth I'd finally learned, was that my worth had never been up to her. It had always been up to me. And I'd chosen to be worthy. I'd chosen to fly. The little girl my father had loved, the one who'd gotten lost in grief and manipulation, and years of systematic degradation, she was still here. She was still fighting. And she'd won. I picked up my phone and called Jonathan. "Hey," I said when he answered. "Remember how you said we should open a West Coast office?" "Yeah," he said cautiously. "Why?" "Let's do it. Let's expand. Let's grow this thing until it's too big to fail. Let's build something that helps people and makes money and changes lives. Let's prove that broken people can create beautiful things." He laughed. "You're not broken, Letitia. You never were. You were just bent for a while." "Then let's stay bent," I said, smiling. "Bent people fit into places straight people can't reach. There's power in that." We talked for an hour about plans and dreams and impossible possibilities. And when we finally hung up, I stood at the window of my hotel room, looking out at the city lights stretched below me, and I felt it again. That feeling from the airplane, rising above everything that had tried to hold me down. Freedom. 5 years after the airport incident, I found myself back in that same terminal. Not running away this time, but arriving home after a business trip to Tokyo. Our company had just signed a partnership with a major international firm, and I was exhausted but exhilarated. As I walked through the arrivals area, pulling my new suitcase behind me, wearing a tailored suit that actually fit, I saw her, Eleanor. She was older, grayer, standing near the baggage claim with a much smaller group than before, just Tiffany beside her, both of them looking tired and diminished. They were waiting for luggage from a budget airline, not preparing to board a luxury vacation. Our eyes met across the terminal. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then Eleanor took a hesitant step forward, and I saw something in her face I'd never seen before. Not manipulation or calculation or fake sweetness. Regret. She opened her mouth to speak, but I shook my head. Not angry, not cruel, just firm. There was nothing she could say that I needed to hear, nothing that would change the past or alter my future. I gave her a small nod. acknowledgement of our shared history if nothing else, and kept walking. Behind me, I heard Tiffany say something sharp to Eleanor, heard Eleanor's broken response. But their words didn't reach me. They couldn't. I was too far ahead now, in every sense that mattered. My driver was waiting at the curb with the car. As we pulled away from the airport, I looked back one last time at the terminal where my life had changed, the place where I'd been broken down and built back up, the place where I'd learned the most important lesson of my life. You can't control how people treat you, but you can control how long you stay in their presence. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is walk away. My phone buzzed with a text from Maya, Jonathan's wife now, and one of my closest friends. Dinner at our place tonight? We have news. I smiled and typed back a quick yes. This was my family now, the people I'd chosen and who'd chosen me. The ones who celebrated my successes without jealousy and supported me through failures without judgment. That evening, sitting around their dinner table with their newborn daughter sleeping in my arms, Jonathan raised his glass. To Letitia, he said, the strongest person I know. Thank you for teaching us that sometimes love means letting go of the people who hurt us and holding tight to the ones who heal us. We clinked glasses, and I felt tears prick my eyes. The good kind. Later, as I drove home to my own house, the one I'd bought with money I'd earned, in a neighborhood I'd chosen, I thought about everything that had led me to this moment. The pain and the triumph, the losses and the gains, the people who'd broken me and the people who'd helped me heal. If someone had told that terrified girl in the airport terminal that 5 years later she'd be successful, happy, and free, she wouldn't have believed it. The pain was too fresh, the humiliation too raw, the future too uncertain. But that's the thing about rock bottom. It's solid. You can build on it. I'd built a life on the ruins of my relationship with Eleanor, built it with my own hands, my own determination, my own refusal to stay small just because someone needed me to be. And every morning when I woke up in my own bed, in my own house, surrounded by my own success, I remembered that moment. The moment Marcus appeared in his uniform, the moment I chose to stand up, the moment I realized I didn't need their permission to be worthy, I'd given myself permission instead. Some people say forgiveness is the key to moving on. That you have to forgive your abusers to truly heal. But I learned something different. I learned that indifference is sometimes more powerful than forgiveness. That you can heal without reconciliation. That walking away doesn't make you weak or cruel or heartless. It makes you free. Eleanor would spend the rest of her life trying to justify her treatment of me, trying to rewrite history to make herself the victim. Tiffany would tell anyone who'd listen that I'd abandoned the family, that I was ungrateful and cold. Richard and Thomas would probably forget I existed at all. And I would continue building my life, stone by stone, success by success, moment by moment, into something they could never touch or tarnish or take away. Because that's the ultimate revenge, isn't it? Not destruction or retaliation or public humiliation, but happiness, success, peace, living well despite everything they did to prevent it. I pulled into my driveway and sat for a moment in the dark, looking at my house with its warm lights glowing in the windows. Inside was everything I'd worked for, everything I'd sacrificed for, everything I'd chosen for myself. And outside, somewhere in the world, Eleanor was probably lying awake, wondering where she went wrong, why I'd turned out so different from what she'd tried to make me. The answer was simple. I'd refused to become what she wanted me to be. I'd insisted on becoming myself instead. That night, before bed, I did something I hadn't done in years. I pulled out an old photo album, one of the few things I'd managed to salvage from my father's belongings before Eleanor had cleaned out his study. I flipped through pictures of my childhood, of my mother, of my father, and there, in the last pages, I found a letter in my father's handwriting, tucked between photos. It was addressed to me, dated just weeks before he died. My dearest Letitia, if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and I'm so sorry I couldn't stay to watch you grow into the remarkable woman I know you'll become. I'm writing this because I need you to know some things I should have said more often when I was alive. You are not like Eleanor or her children. You are better, kinder, stronger, more genuine, and that difference will make your life harder for a while. People who are mediocre resent excellence, and they will try to convince you that you're the problem. Don't believe them. You are my greatest achievement, my proudest accomplishment, the best thing I ever did in this world. And if Eleanor or anyone else tries to make you feel small or worthless or less than, remember this: you came from love. Your mother and I created you in love, raised you in love, and loved you with everything we had. That love is still in you. It will sustain you. It will guide you. It will remind you that you are worthy of good things, of respect, of happiness. If you ever feel lost, remember, you are my daughter. You have my strength, your mother's kindness, and a spirit that is entirely your own. Trust that spirit. Follow it. Let it lead you to the life you deserve. I love you more than words can say. And wherever I am, whatever comes next, I will always be proud of you. Always. Dad. I sat on my bedroom floor and cried, clutching the letter to my chest. He'd known. He'd known what Eleanor would do, how she'd treat me, what I'd face. And he'd tried to protect me the only way he could, with words of love and affirmation that had waited 5 years for me to find them. But I'd found them now, when I needed them most. Not because I was weak or uncertain, but because I was strong enough to receive them, strong enough to believe them. The next morning, I framed the letter and hung it in my office, right above my desk where I could see it every day. A reminder of where I came from, and why I'd fought so hard to become who I was. Years passed. The company grew. I grew. I dated, loved, had my heart broken, and healed. I traveled the world, made new friends, lost touch with old ones, and learned that life is constantly evolving. But one thing remained constant: my commitment to myself, my refusal to shrink for anyone, my determination to live authentically, even when authenticity was uncomfortable or unpopular or difficult. I never reconciled with Eleanor. She reached out occasionally, through lawyers or mutual acquaintances or carefully worded emails, that managed to be simultaneously apologetic and self-serving. I never responded. Not out of spite or revenge, but because I had nothing to say to her. She wasn't my mother. She wasn't my family. She was just someone I used to know, someone who taught me valuable lessons about who I didn't want to be, and that was enough. 10 years after the airport incident, I was invited to give the keynote address at a women's leadership conference. The organizer told me they'd chosen me because my story of resilience and self-determination had inspired thousands of women to leave toxic situations and build better lives. Standing backstage, waiting to go on, I felt nervous in a way I hadn't felt in years. This was the biggest audience I'd ever addressed, the most public I'd ever been about my past. But then I thought about that girl in the airport terminal, the one who'd been humiliated and broken and convinced she was worthless, the one who'd somehow found the courage to stand up and walk away. If she could do that, I could do this. I walked onto that stage, looked out at 3,000 faces, and told them the truth. I told them about Eleanor's cruelty and my complicity in accepting it. About the years I'd wasted trying to earn love from someone incapable of giving it. About the moment everything changed and the terrifying, exhilarating journey that followed. I told them about the late nights working 3 jobs, the online classes, the slow building of something that was mine. About Jonathan and Marcus and Maya and all the people who'd chosen to support me when I'd finally learned to support myself. And I told them the most important thing I'd learned, that you teach people how to treat you, and if you accept mistreatment, you're teaching them that you don't value yourself. The audience was silent, rapt, hanging on every word. When I finished, the applause was deafening. Women stood, some crying, some smiling, all of them seeing themselves in my story. Afterward, the line of people wanting to talk to me stretched across the venue. One by one, they shared their own stories. The mother-in-law who belittled them, the partner who controlled them, the friend who used them, the family that diminished them. And one by one, I told them the same thing. You deserve better. You are worth more. And walking away doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you a person who values themselves. One woman, probably in her 60s, waited until the end of the line. When she finally reached me, she took my hands in hers and said, "I stayed for 40 years. 40 years with a man who made me feel worthless. Your story gave me the courage to finally leave. I filed for divorce last month. I just wanted to say thank you." I hugged her, this stranger who'd suffered for decades, and whispered, "It's never too late. You're going to be okay." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I know, because you are." That night, lying in my hotel room, I thought about all the versions of myself I'd been. The child who'd lost her mother too soon, the teenager who'd lost her father and her sense of security, the young woman who'd accepted abuse because she didn't know she deserved better, the survivor who'd walked away, the entrepreneur who'd built something meaningful, the speaker who'd shared her story to help others. All of those versions were still part of me. The pain and the triumph, the weakness and the strength, the fear and the courage. They'd shaped me, refined me, made me who I was, and who I was, finally, was enough. Not perfect, not invulnerable, not without flaws or fears or moments of doubt. Just enough. The last time I saw Eleanor was at a charity gala 3 years ago. I'd been invited as a major donor and speaker. She'd been invited as someone's +1, hanging on to the edges of the social circle she'd once commanded. We didn't speak, didn't acknowledge each other beyond the briefest nod. But I saw her watching me as I gave my speech, saw something like pride or regret or longing in her eyes. Too little, too late. After the event, my assistant handed me a note. It was from Eleanor, her handwriting shakier now but still recognizable. "Letitia, you've become everything I wished I could be. I'm sorry I tried to stop you. Eleanor." I read it once, then handed it back to my assistant. "File this somewhere," I said. "Or don't. It doesn't matter." Because it didn't. Her apology, her regret, her belated recognition of my worth, none of it changed anything. I'd stopped needing her validation years ago. Now, sitting in my office, looking at my father's letter on the wall and the success I'd built around me, I understood something fundamental about healing and growth. Closure doesn't always come from the people who hurt you. Sometimes it comes from yourself, from the moment you decide their opinion no longer defines you, from the moment you walk away and mean it. That moment for me had been in an airport terminal, surrounded by strangers and humiliation, with a military captain offering me an unexpected lifeline. But the real lifeline had been the one I'd thrown myself. The decision to stand up, to walk away, to believe I deserved better even when I had no proof beyond my own desperate hope. That hope had been enough. It had carried me through the hardest years of my life and delivered me here, to this moment, to this success, to this peace. And if I could leave one message for anyone reading my story, anyone facing their own Eleanor, their own moment of degradation and choice, it would be this. You are not what they say you are. You are not defined by their cruelty or their limitations or their inability to see your worth. You are defined by your choice to rise, to walk away, to insist on being treated with the respect you deserve. It won't be easy. There will be moments of doubt, nights of loneliness, times when you question whether you made the right choice. But keep walking, keep building, keep believing in yourself even when no one else does. Because one day, you'll look back at the moment you thought was your lowest point and realize it was actually the moment you started flying. And on that day, when you're surrounded by the life you've built with your own hands and your own determination and your own refusal to stay small, you'll understand what I understand now. Freedom isn't given, it's taken. And I took mine with both hands and never looked back. The end.